Shalom, family. Good to see you here. Hope you're doing well. Well, I mentioned this in my first live stream today how Donald Trump recently went back to Walter Reed weeks after having a first MRI done to have a second one done. And unfortunately, because of the character of Donald Trump, you will never know why. He's going to keep telling you he's in great shape, he is doing well. He said he did a perfect MRI, whatever the hell that means, a perfect MRI. So, anyway, this administration is definitely not going to give you any info on him, and Donald Trump himself is going to continue. We're watching a man decline that's sitting in our face telling us he's in great shape. No, you're not. And it's not hard to detect that when you look at Donald Trump, but for some reason he think it is. So, of course, he didn't tell anybody why he needed a second MRI. So, it's a lot of speculation going on about his health. This is why, this 2028 talk, Donald Trump better worry about where he is in 2025 and worry less about 2028. So, y'all, I'm going to share my screen so you can hear some of the things. 'Cause part of it is Donald Trump talking, and he's going to tell you how he had to take a cognitive test. And see, I know what that test is. My mother had dementia. Okay. And he is talking as if that test is an IQ test. It's absolutely nothing like an IQ test. All right. It's nothing like that. And somebody actually put that test up on the screen. And that is the test to see if he's got all his faculties, he doesn't have dementia or anything like that. And he's trying to make this comparison as if it's an IQ test, but you'll see what I mean. Give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
AOC's low IQ. You give her an IQ test, have her pass like the exams that I decided to take when I was at Walter Reed. I took those are very hard. They're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump. Let Jasmine go against Trump. I don't think Jasmine. The first couple of questions are easy: a tiger, an elephant, a giraffe. When you get up to about 5 or 6, and then when you get up to 10 and 20 and 25, they couldn't come close to answering any of those questions. I did. I got an MRI. It was perfect.
First of all, they most certainly can pass a cognitive test because they are younger than Donald Trump. Donald Trump struggles with those exams. Now, he's trying to make us think these younger women with all their faculties couldn't pass a cognitive test. This is what he's implying. Oh, they couldn't pass this test like me. First of all, who thinks Donald Trump is real smart? We're around these type of people every single day, and we know they are mediocre as hell, like Donald Trump. They are mediocre. They are not the best at anything. Okay? They're a legend in their own minds because Donald Trump is talking. That's not an IQ test, but he's talking like the cognitive test is like an IQ test. And they could not pass, these younger women could not pass that test like he could, which is a load of BS. They most certainly could. I know what that test is. I've seen that test. My mother had to take that test. They got all kinds of who's the current president of the United States? Do you know what time and date this is? Those are certain questions they have to ask in order to determine if you have Alzheimer's, dementia. I've seen it. So for him to stand here and say these young women that are not struggling at all couldn't pass that test is nothing short of a joke. And the fact that they got to show you a giraffe and ask you to identify a giraffe and you think that's some big deal, that is downright laughable. It really is. But that's the kind, somebody actually puts the test up on the screen. Trust me, you could probably take that test to elementary school, and the elementary school children that are not declining or have a disability could pass that test. And that is a fact. All right, let's go on.
Perfect. Yeah.
So Trump overnight finally admitted that he received an MRI when he made that recent visit to Walter Reed Hospital for a follow-up following his annual physical back in April. Trump also kept going on and on and on again about passing a cognitive test for dementia and said that he doubts AOC or Jasmine Crockett would be able to pass the same dementia tests that he did. And yes, that was tests plural. Now, I think it's interesting that Trump had to have this follow-up appointment to begin with and get an MRI and take these tests. If you remember, when he went to this recent appointment, there was speculation from a whole lot of people that it was for an MRI. Here's a tweet from George Conway from October 10th. He wrote, quote, "Apropos of nothing in particular this morning, I've been told that in essence, there are two things that physicians can't do at the White House Medical Unit, MRIs and surgeries. Virtually anything else can be done there if you have to or want to." Well, he nailed it. Here's Trump's full comments about his MRI. The most perfect MRI, the best MRI that doctors have ever seen.
Can you read out Walter Reed mentioned advanced medical imaging? Did you get an MRI? Can you tell us what
I did. I got an MRI. It was perfect. Yeah. I mean, I gave you the full results. We had an MRI and in the machine, the whole thing, and it was perfect. Yeah.
Can you say what in particular they?
You could ask the doctors. In fact, we have doctors traveling with us, but I think they gave you a very conclusive. Nobody has ever given you reports like I gave you. And if I didn't think it was going to be good, either I would let you know negatively. I wouldn't run. I'd do something. But the doctor said some of the best reports for the age, some of the best reports they've ever seen.
And here's some ranting about his cognitive tests.
They have Jasmine Crockett, a low IQ person. They have AOC's low IQ. You give her an IQ test. Have her pass like the exams that I decided to take when I was at Walter Reed. Those are very hard, they're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump. Let Jasmine go against Trump. I don't think Jasmine, the first couple of questions are easy. A tiger, an elephant, a giraffe, When you get up to about 5 or 6, and then when you get up to 10 and 20 and 25, they couldn't come close to answering any of those questions.
Once again, these weren't IQ tests you took, Donald. These were tests for dementia. Spread the word and follow along for more.
Do you remember when President Trump randomly went to Walter Reed Medical Center a few weeks ago? I reported on all of it in this video. Well, it was strange at the time because that was Trump's second trip to Walter Reed this year. Presidents normally only go there once a year for their annual physical. Well, today, while on Air Force One during his trip in Asia, Trump revealed something new about that doctor's visit.
I did. I got an MRI. It was perfect. Yeah. I mean, I gave you the full results. We had an MRI and in the machine, the whole thing, and it was perfect. Yeah.
Can you say what in particular they?
You could ask the doctors. In fact, we have doctors traveling with us, but I think they gave you a very conclusive. Nobody has ever given you reports like I gave you. And if I didn't think it was going to be good, either I would let you know negatively. I wouldn't run. I'd do something. But the doctor said some of the best reports for the age, some of the best reports they've ever seen.
Surprise! As you just heard, Trump said he had an MRI during that more than 3-hour visit to Walter Reed on October 10th. Now, You just heard him say that the results were perfect and that the doctors told him they were the best results that they've seen for someone his age. But then he said, I gave you the full results. Well, not really. A few weeks ago, what the White House gave us was this letter from Trump's White House physician after that rare second medical visit. The letter does say that the president underwent advanced imaging. MRIs are absolutely considered advanced imaging, but the letter gave absolutely no indication of the actual results of that MRI. And most importantly, it didn't say why the president was getting an MRI. The letter talked about Trump's cardiac age being 14 years younger than his chronological age, and it said he is exhibiting strong cardiovascular, pulmonary, neurological, and physical performance. But again, it says nothing about the MRI, and for the record, said nothing about the swelling in Trump's ankles, which the White House back in July said was due to chronic venous insufficiency. And it made no mention of the bruising on the tops of Trump's hands, which is clearly still being covered with makeup. Now, back in July, the White House said that bruising was caused by excessive handshaking. Now, this MRI is raising some new questions about Trump's health. Of course, he is 79 years old. And it is possible now that the president himself mentioned this MRI, the White House could release more information about what's exactly going on.
Donald Trump seemingly just admitted that he struggled when he was taking the Alzheimer's test at Walter Reed. After calling AOC low IQ, he started bragging about taking what he thought was an IQ test, but here's the thing, it wasn't. It was actually a cognitive test used to screen for Alzheimer's and dementia. Take a look at this.
Let AOC go against Trump. Let Jasmine go against Trump. I don't think Jasmine, the first couple of questions are easy. A tiger, an elephant, a giraffe, When you get up to about 5 or 6, and then when you get up to 10 and 20 and 25, they couldn't come close to answering any of those questions.
The more he keeps talking about this and bragging about it, the more obvious it becomes that he has no idea what this test was. This is one of those moments where Trump thinks he's bragging, but he's actually admitting something very serious. The test he's referring to is a basic assessment used by doctors to check for Alzheimer's or mental decline. It's not used to check for intelligence like he's trying to claim. It's used to check for memory loss and confusion. When he says the first couple of questions are easy, like a tiger, a giraffe, an elephant, he's talking about the picture naming section of the test. One of the first steps to see if the patient can recognize basic animals. That is not an aptitude test. It's what they give to senior citizens when they're concerned about memory problems or dementia. But let's just be honest with ourselves for a second. We all know if Donald Trump completely failed that test, the general public would never hear about it. They would, of course, lie to us and say he absolutely aced the test and his memory recollection is that of a 20-year-old's.
This is really weird stuff. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just announced that Donald Trump will be going to his annual physical at Walter Reed Hospital on Friday morning. The weird thing about this, Donald Trump already had his annual physical in April of this year. Here's the White House's statement, just released statement from the press secretary on Friday morning. Trump will visit Walter Reed Medical Center for a planned meeting and remarks with the troops. While there, he will stop by for his routine yearly checkup. He will then return to the White House. He is considering going to the Middle East shortly thereafter. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. But I mean, we all remember that Donald Trump had his annual physical in April of this year. I mean, it's on the White House website right here. Memorandum from the White House physician, the White House, April 13th, 2025. And here's the letter that was released at the time. Again, April 13th, 2025. On April 11th, 2025, President Donald J. Trump underwent his annual physical examination at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. I performed and supervised this comprehensive exam, blah, 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 blah. Remember, this was the same medical report that highlighted frequent victories in golf events as evidence of Donald Trump's good health. And so the fact that Donald Trump is going to Walter Reed Hospital for his annual physical when he already had an annual physical just a few months ago is raising a whole lot of eyebrows about his health. Especially considering all the recent news where we've seen his mouth drooping, we've seen the bruising on his hands, we've seen these swollen cankles. Remember when he disappeared for nearly an entire week just a few weeks ago? Well, the White House is clearly being less than truthful when it comes to this appointment, and we should all be seeking answers as to what's really going on here. We're going to keep following this story and more. Make sure you're following our account, and remember to add the Midas Touch podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
The reason that Trump went back to Walter Reed Friday morning is because he had a stroke around Labor Day. Let's break it down. By the way, I'm a physical therapist with a doctorate in my field and 14 years experience in home health care, treating geriatric patients just like the president. Here's the memo sent from Dr. Sean Barbarella to Caroline Leavitt. He's a DO, but we won't hold that against him. Just kidding. My primary doctor is a DO. President Trump successfully completed a scheduled follow-up evaluation today at Walter Reed. This was part of his ongoing health maintenance plan and included advanced imaging. When they say advanced imaging, they're talking about a full CT and MRI scan of his entire body that they cannot perform at the White House. Comprehensive laboratory studies performed in conjunction with the visit were exceptional, including stable metabolic, hematologic, and cardiac parameters. Using the word stable implies that they have been unstable recently, but they've been lying about his blood work for a long time. If he's only taking a statin and ezetimibe, he would never have the kind of blood work that they claim. But of course, that's because they're lying about his actual medication list. He's taking more medications than they're willing to release because they don't want you to know he's had a stroke. Oh, and then this little chestnut. In preparation for upcoming international travel, President Trump has also received preventative health screenings and immunizations, including a flu and COVID shot. Do you hear that, MAGA? Trump got another COVID shot because they're safe and effective. Go fuck yourself. If you're a patient that's had a stroke and you're at high risk of having another one, it's recommended that you get another round of scans 4 to 6 weeks after the initial event. Combined with all of his other stroke symptoms like difficulty with language, dysarthria, facial droop, weakness on the right side of his body, we're looking at a guy who had an ischemic stroke approximately 6 weeks ago, around Labor Day, where he disappeared for several days. Once again, the White House continues to lie about the president's actual physical condition. But everybody in the White House and a ton of people in Congress actually know the true situation. And that's why support for him is starting to wane. As soon as they either open the government back up or the other shoe drops with those files with his best friend, you're going to see just how much support Donald Trump doesn't have anymore. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
He is refusing to rule out running for a third term. It is unconstitutional for him to run for a third term. He said, I could do it as VP. That is unconstitutional. Okay? When Steve Bannon goes on national television and says, we have a plan in place for him to run for a third term, understand they're telling you the plan. They're laying the groundwork for him to do this. And now publicly, Donald Trump is not ruling out running for a third term. Understand how dangerous that is. And I know I get on here a lot and say, don't normalize this, don't do that. This is unconstitutional. This is why Trump loves Putin, loves Viktor Orban from Hungary. They have the playbook to become a dictator. They have the playbook and he loves it. He wants to be a dictator. He wants to go for a third term, and they are laying the groundwork. And if somebody doesn't do something, if someone doesn't step up and stop this, we are in trouble. If Congress doesn't do something, we are in trouble. Because he's not going to leave office in 2028, guys. He's not.
The results from Donald Trump's recent medical exam are in, and let me tell you, there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. So first and foremost, when the White House announced that Donald Trump would be having this exam, they described it as a routine yearly checkup, but that couldn't be further from what actually happened. This is the letter that Donald Trump's physician put out about the physical, and it's clear from this that it was a far deeper, more sophisticated exam. First of all, he says that Trump completed a scheduled follow-up evaluation at Walter Reed. The White House never told us that Trump had a scheduled follow-up from his April physical, but then he said the visit was part of his ongoing health maintenance plan and included advanced imaging, laboratory testing, and preventative health assessments conducted by a team of specialists. This doesn't seem like your average physical, now does it? And other former doctors to elected officials are kind of raising alarms here. Jonathan Reiner, a longtime cardiologist for former VP Dick Cheney, said the White House should be more honest about the results of the latest visit, as some of the tests did not appear to be routine. He said, are they following up on concerns from when it was noted during the summer that his legs were very swollen, or even the bruising on his hands? And Jeffrey Coleman, who served as a White House physician to 3 presidents, said that normally presidents visit Walter Reed to receive advanced imaging or undergo medical procedures. So Trump was not going there just for your average physical. The White House has not said what tests were done, the results of those tests, or given any more information. This is obviously, in my view, very strange.
Anyone remember when Trump randomly tweeted back in 2020 about not having a series of mini strokes? So what Trump said today about having an MRI and then taking cognitive tests reminded me of that tweet back in 2020. Apparently, he tweeted about having mini strokes because Joe Lockhart, the former press secretary for the Clinton administration, asked if Trump had a stroke that he was keeping from the public. He said nothing about mini strokes. But Trump, being defensive and acting weird, gave away a detail that was never talked about whatsoever. But coupled with that, and him talking about also having an MRI and then taking a cognitive test, brings up some questions for me. A lot of people have been speculating that Trump may have had a stroke. The way he walks, sometimes his face is droopy. Now we're hearing about an MRI that was never reported on, and we were just told that Trump is in perfect condition and perfect health. Plus, he thinks the Montreal cognitive test is an IQ test and that it's hard. It's not that hard of a test, but every time he takes it, he seems to brag about how difficult it is and how smart he is. So.
Would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. You read it. Am I not ruling it out? You'll have to tell me.
Now, President Donald Trump just recently came out and told reporters that he recently got an MRI at his recent annual physical exam. Now, why would someone get an MRI like Donald Trump? We're not really sure, and he hasn't really revealed many of the details around it. Now, some celebrities have recently been getting these full body MRIs, which we don't really recommend as part of the medical community. First of all, it's very costly. Second of all, it can find all these what we call incidentalomas, which basically means that all these random little things that could potentially be suspicious, but could also lead us down rabbit holes of invasive testing and time and energy that could eventually lead to nothing. That's why we typically don't order tests unless we have an actual reason for it. Do you think that presidents should be revealing all of their medical information? Historically, we expect presidents to reveal all their medical information, but many presidents have not in the past, and that's been going since the beginning of the country. What do you think? Do you think that presidents should be revealing all their medical information to the public?
This just broke. It's been revealed that tomorrow, Friday, Donald Trump will be headed to Walter Reed Medical Center for what the White House is calling a routine annual checkup. But here's the problem with that narrative. On April 11th, less than 6 months ago, Donald Trump already had a routine annual checkup. Do you think that Donald Trump is hiding something?
Kristen, there's also something of an update from the president on his health. He revealed to reporters that he's recently got an MRI. What are we learning about it?
Yeah, I mean, it was this moment on Air Force One where we had asked a number of times, including the last press briefing from the press secretary, what kind of advanced imaging President Trump had gotten during his last trip to Walter Reed. Just a reminder, that had come out as part of the release. And the press secretary said she didn't know. Well, President Trump was directly asked on this plane if whether or not he got an MRI, and he said yes, he did.
So now a routine checkup includes an MRI that the press wasn't told about. That's interesting. And now for our 13,000th edition of the game, imagine this was Biden.
Most of us do not get an MRI as part of a normal physical. Aren't they typically used to detect things like strokes and aneurysms and tumors? I mean, do you have any clues as to why the president would have gotten an MRI?
You're right, Sarah. It's not part of a routine screening examination. There's been really a lack of candor coming from the White House about this. When they announced that the president would visit Walter Reed at the beginning of this month, they initially said it was for his annual checkup. But when they were reminded that that's not due until April, they said, okay, it's for routine semi-annual checkup. But just physical exams are done in the White House. The White House has a prodigious testing capacity. And the president and vice president go to Walter Reed for testing that is not available at the White House, something like a CT or, as we now hear, an MRI. The big question is, what prompted his MRI?
Donald Trump recently told reporters aboard Air Force One en route to Tokyo that, quote, I got an MRI. It was perfect.
Walter Reed mentioned advanced medical imaging. Did you get an MRI? Can you tell us why?
I got an MRI. It was perfect. Yeah. I mean, I gave you the full results. We had an MRI, and in the machine, the whole thing, and it was perfect. Yeah.
Did you say what in particular?
You could ask the doctors. In fact, we have doctors traveling with us, but I think they gave you a very conclusive. Nobody has ever given you reports like I gave you. And if I didn't think it was going to be good either.
The White House labeled it as a, quote, routine yearly checkup, though his last physical was just 6 months ago. And here's the problem, right? MRIs are not routine. They're done when there's a specific concern, not just because you want a picture of your insides for the fridge. Medical experts told NBC News that this kind of scan is typically ordered when a patient either reports pain, swelling, or visible bruising, not during a healthy president's annual exam, as we've been told. So if it's routine, why?
President Trump made a 3-hour stop at Walter Reed Medical Center today, and now we know more about why. Just a little bit ago, the White House released this letter from Trump's White House physician. This is the president completed a comprehensive follow-up evaluation where it was discovered that he was in excellent overall health. The letter goes as far as to say that Trump's cardiac age is approximately 14 years younger than his chronological age. Trump is 79 years old, so his doctor is saying in this letter that Trump has the cardiovascular health of a 65-year-old. The letter goes on to say that this trip to Walter Reed today was pre-scheduled and was part of an ongoing health maintenance plan where Trump had multiple tests done and saw several different types of doctors. This medical exam was necessary, according to the letter, because of Trump's upcoming travel schedule. So he needed a preventative health screening and immunizations, including an annual flu shot and an updated COVID-19 booster vaccine, which he received both today. Normally, we see the presidents go to Walter Reed for a physical just one time a year, but Trump already had one of those physicals back in April. So now the White House is calling today's visit to Walter Reed his semi-annual physical. At the very end of the letter, Dr. Barbabella says President Donald J. Trump remains in exceptional health, exhibiting strong cardiovascular, pulmonary, neurological, and physical performance. For the record, this letter makes absolutely no reference to the swelling in Trump's ankles, which the White House back in July said was due to chronic venous insufficiency, and it made no mention of the bruising on the tops of Trump's hands, which is clearly still being covered up with makeup. Back in July, the White House said that bruising was due to excessive handshaking.
Okay, y'all. You know what I think is happening, y'all. Donald Trump is telling those doctors what to write instead of allowing them to write the truth about whatever's going on with him. I really do. I mean, the what they're writing makes no sense when you physically see him and you see them big, gigantic cankles, you know darn well. And I don't care what nobody say. I think that's connected to his heart. I really do. I think Donald Trump is suffering from heart problems along with whatever else, he could be having those strokes. I did see the drooping mouth as well as a lot of other people. I think he is a man that is in denial about how bad his health is. And like some of y'all were writing, how the hell do you eat Big Macs and Burger King all the time and your health is in good shape? We know that's not happening and is definitely not happening with him. And as far as him being 14 years younger in his cognitive thinking, that's BS. No, he isn't. Talking about he's like a 65-year-old man. Again, I think Donald Trump is telling these doctors what to write. I really do. I think he's had a series of many strokes. Sun-kissed. I really believe he had a series of them. Yeah, and the cankles is an indication that there are heart problems. So, like I said before, instead of worrying about 2028, you need to worry about the here and now. The way you look, and we see what's physically wrong, and a bruise on your hand that won't go away. Nah, man. Mm-mm. No, you're not in great shape, Donald Trump. And many of us that have taken care of our elders that were sick before they passed, we know these different medical issues and had to look at it up close and in person. And Donald Trump, man, Mitch McConnell, please, he should have had his ass out of there 20 years ago. He's another one. Every time you turn around, it's a new story about him falling. He should have been out of there a long time ago, and then freezing at the mic. These people, they are so drunk on power, they don't know when to sit down. Seriously. I don't think it's just his ankles that are swollen. I think his feet are swollen too. I think everything on the lower part of his leg is swollen. All right. So let me thank G. Bowman Jr. saying they are mediocre is being gentle and kind. Yeah, actually it is. But thank you for your support for my channel and the Crawford experience. Thank you for the 11-month membership. Donald Trump's health is so bad that on the right of the election, he had two big Whopper meals and two Big Mac meals. Wow, that's really crazy for an 80-year-old man. Yeah, well, they said all he does, the Crawford experience, all he does is eat junk. And I remember when he was in his first term, I had read that the Secret Service did not like working for Donald Trump. Donald Trump would send them on 3 a.m. runs for fast food. And they said that's not their job. That's not what they're supposed to do. But Donald Trump used them to run all over the place to get his fast food. So if he was up at 3 a.m., he wanted junk food and they would have to run out there and get it for him. And he would want McDonald's and Burger King. I guess in DC, some of those restaurants stay open late or they stay open all night. And that's what he used to do. And they did not like it. They did not like it at all. hmm Well, you saw that one photo when he first took office. I think it was him, Don Jr., um, RFK, and a few, and I think JD Vance, and they're all on the plane with McDonald's, just sitting at a table on a plane with all this McDonald's because that's how he eats. And don't he drink like a case of Diet Coke? I think I read that too. Like he'll go through a whole case of Diet Coke every day. But he is out here telling us he's in the best shape. Come on. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. And I did get a glimpse of Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. Oh my goodness. Maybe I'll show you the clip when we come back at 5:45. It is bad. They said it hit the islands at with wind speeds of 185 miles an hour. And I was listening to their prime minister, and he was saying there is nothing built on that island that can withstand 185-mile-an-hour wind. It is bad. So my prayers to Jamaica. I hope everybody makes it through okay because that clip I saw did not look good at all. So y'all, I will see you at 5:45 and Yeah, I will grab that. Although it doesn't have anything to do with what we'll be talking about, I'll try to grab a clip so y'all can see some of the people actually, filmed the hurricane around them, and they've been uploading it online. And man, when I say that thing was bad, it was bad. Shalom, family.